A very warm welcome, friends, again in the channel. Today, we are again going to deal with academic writing. And as you have already known, the three parts have been dealt with. Now, this is the time to deal with the part four. So, today's topic is academic writing, part four. And in this part four, we are going to deal with the fourth number, that the introduction to the writing process already done, introduction to the conventions of academic writing, it is also done. Third, writing in one's own words, summarizing and paraphrasing, this is also done. Now, last today's topic, as it is critical thinking, part 4, number 4, synthesis, analysis, and evaluation. So, we are going to deal with it in this video thoroughly, step by step. Before going into the detail, let us try to understand first the all over idea about critical thinking. So there is a graph, and in this graph, I have sketched what we need to understand and what we are going to deal here in this video. So three parts of critical thinking are here: evaluation, number one, number two is analysis, and number three is synthesis. And now just try to look at the spelling. It is analysis and synthesis. Why not analysis and synthesis? We will come to know about it. Now, evaluation is also divided into three parts: authority, accuracy, and currency. And authority is divided into two parts: the printed material and electronic and web publications. If you follow carefully, look at here that evaluation is the first part one, second, say, two, analysis, and in Roman letter, three, synthesis. So just you need to understand, because of your convenience, I have written here 1A, 1B, 1C. So these three parts are of evaluation, and 1AI, 1A2. That means I suggests 1, I suggests 2. So 1A1 and 1A2 suggest the authority. The main part is authority here, and the two parts are printed material and electronic or web applications. So these are the ideally these are the ideal sketch that you have to understand in this video. So without wasting time, let us go into the deeper of this. Critical thinking, as we can understand here, it is about synthesis, analysis, and evaluation. Let us start. So what is critical thinking? First, we have to understand. If we do not understand what is critical thinking, then we cannot understand probably that what we need to deal with. As here the point is the critical thinking, let us try to find out what is it. Critical thinking, as you can see, is the most crucial part of academic writing, and in every stage of writing, critical thinking is necessary. Well, this we can understand. What else? It is the ability to think independently, follow very carefully, to ask questions, to seek answers to the questions, to sift through the process of critical information, to arrange the arguments, and finally to come to a conclusion to one's own. Now here you can see the word sift through. Sift is already explained in the earlier video, number 3. That means in part 3 of academic writing. Here you have again this sift. Now you need to understand that it is the thinking ability, independently thinking, asking questions and getting answers, or finding answers, sifting through the process of critical information. That is very important. So this is what about critical thinking is. Now moving on to the next one, critical thinking begins with taking notes, and perhaps even before what one chooses a topic for academic writing. So choice is here very important. You have to choose a specific topic, and before going into it, before dealing with taking notes, you have to understand that how to choose a topic, and this is also a significant part of critical thinking. The act of choosing a topic involves a discretion. Yes, it is obvious, because without discretion you cannot choose a topic properly, because if you even if you choose, there may be certain other unnecessary aspects that you have to avoid at that moment. Making a choice is the result of critical thinking. Identifying the right and authentic source is an important part of this process, and there are a few things that need to be kept in mind while choosing these sources. In other words, the source or the sources need to be evaluated. So evaluation is here very important aspect. What is then evaluation? Before going into the evaluation, you have to understand that twice, as it is very important, you have to understand in critical thinking, twice is very significant aspect. And the sources which you can use for your critical thinking or material for your critical thinking, those sources need to be very, very specific and chosen specifically. So evaluation therefore is important. On the next slide, we are going to deal with again evaluation, the first part. In evaluation, you have to understand that it is very difficult to evaluate sources, because oftentimes what happens, we try to find necessary materials from internet resource, but internet resource is not trustworthy at all, because there are so many errors and erroneous facts which you have to understand. Because if you are trying to create something better, if you are trying to make something comprehensible as well as scholastic, then you need to choose very carefully. Now, why internet resource is not trustworthy? Because the general tendency that we have usually, that whatever has been converted to print or is there on the internet is authentic of source and trustworthy, we believe. But this is not always the case, and one has to be careful while selecting the source from which one draws material for academic writing, just what I said earlier. So it is better, I think, and as well as the source that from where I have taken that book also suggests you that it is better to seek advice from your teacher, because your teacher will be good enough to guide you on this. Now, MLA handbook, as we are talking about here, and also in the previous parts of academic writing, we have about the MLA handbook 7th edition. Now, in the 7th edition of MLA handbook, there are three following advices that advice for the students that they have to follow. So, focus particularly on authority, accuracy, and currency as the source you use. So these three are marked in different colors so that you can easily understand what are the points of focus. So authority, accuracy, and currency. And here, one by one, we are going to deal with. The first comes as authority. Now, authority is in the first one. Uh, if you can remember the first sketch that I have given in the front part of the video earlier, that from authority you have two parts. One is the printed material. So there are few standards by which the authority of a source is judged. The first one is peer review. Questions may be asked what is called a peer review, and you have to answer again very carefully with examples. Now, why should primacy be given to peer reviewed books and journals? To understand this question, we need to first understand what is a peer and what is a peer review and what is peer reviewed journal. And then we can understand why the primacy, importance, significance should be given to a peer reviewed books and journals. There are the reasons. A peer is a person who belongs to the same status. So, peer review means review by those who work in the same field and considered to be experts. So, if you are an expert, you are considering a text or a piece of writing. That means you are reviewing it as a peer because it is reviewed by you. Because you are a peer, it is called peer reviewed. As an expert, you are reviewing a piece of writing. In most scholarly writings, like journals and books, publish a sixth opinion of these experts. That means the peers. The reviewer reads the manuscript or typescript, evaluates it on the basis of the importance of the subject, the originality and soundness of the argument, and veracity of the facts and its utility in current research. So, what you have learned here, that the reviewer has to follow the instructions on the basis of the importance of the subject, the originality, and the soundness of the argument. So the piece has to be original, it should not be copied from somewhere else, so there should not be taken material. So is there any necessity, or is there any sound attachment, a sound knowledge or sound logic that is given by your writing? That is reviewed. The reviewer then submits a report to the publisher, either recommending the manuscript for publication or rejecting it. Therefore, anything that is published in a peer reviewed journal or a book which has an editorial board that subscribes to this policy undergoes exacting scrutiny. So, if an editorial board is here, and if your writing is going to be published in a peer reviewed journal or a book, there is a huge amount of scrutiny, and scrutiny is very necessary. Why? Because if it is not scrutinized, then whether you're writing or a piece, your creative writing or critical thinking, should be judged as good or not, you cannot understand. So, scrutiny, therefore, is very necessary. It is always recommended that while choosing sources, primacy be given to such peer reviewed books and journals. So you can understand right now that these are the reasons why peer reviewed journals are considered to be best. For this reason, books and journals published by the university presses such as Oxford, Cambridge University Press commands more authority than many other publications because there are lots of scrutinies. These are supposed to be standard. Now, if you want to publish your writing into a standard version, then it has to be peer reviewed because it is always going through scrutiny. Now, in the second part of the authority, the second part is an electronic or web publications. Now, in this, we have to understand that there are recommendations for print publications, although, but most of them apply to the electronic publications too. In this age of post-truth, accessing and selecting the right material from the internet is very challenging. As it is said earlier, that the internet resource is not always trustworthy. You cannot trust properly the internet resource, and it demands caution from the students. Unlike printed material, most electronic publications do not have system of peer review. And many online works are self-published without any critical evaluation by experts. It is better not to rely on such publications. So here you can understand that why electronic publications or publications is and are not very good for your resource because those are not peer reviewed, and we have already explained what is called a peer review. Now, in this case, we have to understand because we need to select resources from internet because internet is a huge resource. To what extent we should be cautious enough? Now, the question is therefore, what are the additional precautionary measures students should remember whenever they use material from a web source? These are following. Well identified editor. The editors are responsible for the website must be identified on the front page. Once they are identified, their affiliation and credentials can be searched for the internet. So you have to understand and you have to be very careful about the credentials. The editor's credentials, which you must find in the front page of the website. For example, book review index or book review digest may be searched for reports of evaluation of the book by experts in the field. Ordinarily, there should be a link to a page labeled homepage on the website, which when clicked will show the credentials of those responsible for the site. If they are found to be affiliated to a college, university, or a research organization, it will add to the credibility of the site. If the editors have scholastic work in the concerned field and their credit will further enhance the acceptability of the site. So, what you need to do, you need to first find out the credentials and then you have to search whether these publications of the editorial board or the book review digest, for example, this kind of websites are literally authentic or not, whether they are associated with some kind of research works or not. If they do, then the credibility of the website is good enough and it will benefit you largely. Secondly, date and recommended checks. For texts or documents that have more than one version, all the checks recommended for print version should also be labeled. And the date of publication of the web version should be checked along with the details of the printed text on which it is based. So date is very necessary. Also, the recommended checks that are very significant for the purpose, you have to remember that because without the dates, you cannot be sure whether they are published on the internet resource as a good one or not. Third is the sponsors. The sponsors of the websites are usually mentioned on the first page. If the sponsor is a university or reputable research organization or a government agency, the information supplied and views expressed are likely to be more authentic and reliable than those found unknown or little known sources. This is very easy. You can understand what I try to say, or rather, the book has to say. For example, if one searches within the website of Economic and Political Weekly, this is an example, just an example. You can search anything. You can search on the basis of your interest. You can search on the basis of your evaluation, etc. For example, here, Economic and Political Weekly, one will find all the above mentioned information there. If the sponsor is a non-profit organization like Project Gutenberg, there should be a prompt such as about the project on the website. If one is looking for information about the syllabus, CBCS syllabus or syllabi for undergraduate students in India, it is advisable to visit the official website of UGC, www.ugc.ac.in. You know, I think. So this is how you have to be careful about the sponsors while searching for the internet materials. Now, if a website has all these criteria fulfilled, it may be assumed that the source is reliable and authentic and worthy of use in research writing. Now, here I have to mention, or rather, teach you, or rather, guide you how to recognize the websites. Official sites, educational institutions in India have ac.in, like say ugc.ac.in in their web address. Government sources are indicated by gov.in. Gov suggests government.in India. Commercial enterprises by .com. .com means commercial. Not for profit organizations by .org. Org stands for organization. So whenever you find these little suffixes with the website, then you can understand what kind of website you are viewing or visiting or searching. It is recommended to be aware of the nature of sponsoring agency of a website that one uses for research work, just what I said. So here you have a glimpse to understand how to understand or how to really go through a website properly and to a proper website. In the next part, we have to learn that the first part, second one, accuracy. The accuracy of scholarly material is verified through citation of sources. A list appears at the end of work called the works cited, where the names of books, authors, and publishers are listed. If all these details are available, a reader can verify the authenticity of the information and arguments quite easily. So here you need to understand what is called works cited. Yes, 2 marks this question may be asked for this. What is the citation of sources or what is called works cited? The list of works cited also gives an idea about the author's range of knowledge. See here, this is important because when you are following a proper diagram, when you are following a proper resource, then you can also have the idea of the knowledge of the writer through the works cited page, because this is the range of knowledge to what extent that person, he or she, has read. You can also understand that. In web publications, hyperlinks lead to the resource or sources that can thereafter be verified on the internet. So hyperlinks, if you are clicking on the hyperlinks, you can find readily available throughout your internet resources. The hyperlinks, once clicked, that will lead you to somewhere else. And from there, you can gather more informations. That is on hyperlink, a very resourceful one. For accuracy, we have to understand what is currency. Now, the currency of the research project is essential in the subjects of theoretical or experimental science, though not so much in humanities or social sciences. But this is not completely correct, because currency is also or maybe used for the purpose of your literature. The date of publication of a print source indicates the currency of your work and consequently its value in prevailing research scenario. So this you can understand that the date of publication is significant for your purpose. In electronic publications, number two, that just we explained, it is possible to continuously update the content for electronic publications. Several dates are sometimes cited, and many include the date for publication of the print version. So in the electronic publications, continuously updating or the continuous updation of the content for electronic publications, there are several dates are sometimes cited and may include the date of publication. The print version. Print version means that the date of publication that you have to use while writing for your purpose, that you are taking material from a resource or source, then you have to use that particular material into your writing by mentioning the date. So therefore, date becomes important. A scrutiny of all these dates gives the scholar an opportunity to trace the history of the development of research in that area. Naturally, for example, if it is dated back to 2005, and if you are finding still materials in 2023, you can understand the validity and the amount of works that have already done, that have already been processed about your particular idea about the particular topic that you were dealing with. So the date of the last version provides an idea about the currency of the research work. The last word, that date, means to what extent it is updated, the version of updation that I was talking about. So after currency, let us move on to analysis. Why analysis? Just I said in the previous slides that why it should be analysis. It is analysis because this is the plural form analysis, nothing else, which according to the concise Oxford Dictionary means detailed examination of the elements or structure of something and also the process of separating something into its constituent elements. So what we have here, that there is a detailed examination of the elements of structure of something, and also this is a process of separating something into its constituent elements. Analysis is an integral part of critical thinking, as you have already understood, a faculty that enables us to separate different standards of argument in a complex web of ideas and evaluate each part individually. So, in order to evaluate each part, you have to analyze and you need to go through the analysis part because there are lots of analysis. So, you have to understand these are called analysis. Analysis of a given text lays bare the continuous development of an argument and how different parts contribute to the development. So, if you are analyzing something, each individual part has its own merit and developing share to your idea that you try to build. Analysis can be stylistic, structural, and thematic. Now, let us have an example that can give some idea about the analysis or how to analyze a text. So there is one self I sing by Walt Whitman's poem. This is the lines of the poem. One self I sing, Walt Whitman. Once self I sing, a simple separate person, yet under the word democratic, the word en masse, of physiology from top to toe I sing. Not physiognomy alone, nor brain alone is worthy for the muse. I say the form complete is worthier far. The female equally with the male I sing. Now, in these lines, the poet is celebrating the individual whom he calls a simple separate person. Here, simple means everybody, not a special person, and the ordinariness of this existence is emphasized. So, ordinary person, you, me, everyone. So, this ordinary person, that one self I sing, is that ordinary person's self that he is trying to sing. In the second line, the poet creates a contrast between the ideas of separate on the one hand and the democratic and en masse on the other, as the latter words signify the collective. In the following lines, the poet repeats the tension between apparently contrasting ideas, physiology, physiognomy, and brain, male, female. So there are a lot of contrasts. Now, this is how you are going to step by step analyze a text. Whatever text you are taking, it doesn't matter. You just have to find out the tension, you just have to find out the contrasts, you just have to find out the each specific word, if there are any, how the writer or the poet or the essayist or the novelist focused on it. This is to foreground this conviction that a person is neither the body nor the brain alone, just as a complete human form is neither male nor female, and none is privileged over the other. This collapsing of binaries is achieved through the juxtaposition of apparently contrasting concepts. So, if you try to focus that something is one, something is complete, then you have to just judge yourself in that way. Look at the sentences. I pray form complete is worthy of far. The female quality equally with the male I sing. So this is the complete form. And in order to understand, or rather, in order to focus what the poet tries to emphasize, you have to understand the contrast. You have to understand the ideas that he tries to suggest. So, in each individual analysis, you have to find in that way the tension between the lines, the contrasting ideas between the lines, the kind of style that that the writer has approached towards, or the kind of rhetoric that he or she has used in the poem. In that way, you can analyze something from something. You can analyze a text beautifully, each text in its own way. Step by step, several analysis and then analysis. So this is the part called analysis. Whitman has used capital letters in the poem even though they do not conform the rules of English grammar. They use capital letters, however, is not arbitrary and follows a pattern. The words that signify the apparent opposition have been written in capitals as also the focus of the poem, the self. So it is the focus of the poem, the self. And for that, there are capital like en masse, as you can see, is democratic, there is male, female, form, muse, all are in capital. So you have to understand why these are in capital. See the stylistic features, just as I said. So Whitman's poem is analyzed here, and I hope that you have understood what is called an analysis. Now the last part is synthesis. Number third, number three is synthesis. Synthesis is a plural form of synthesis, which according to the Concise Oxford Dictionary means the combination of components or elements to form a connected whole. That easily can be understood. In critical thinking, refers to the final stage in the process of dialectical reasoning in which a new idea resolves the conflict between thesis and antithesis. Then you have to understand what is called a thesis and an antithesis. Wait. Thesis means a statement of theory that is put forward as a premise to be maintained or proved. So there has to be a statement or theory. Okay, I will give you the example, just the example that has been explained in the book, and I'm going to explain again to you. Antithesis is the contrast of ideas expressed by parallelism of strongly contrasted words. So there is statement or theory. There may also be contrast of ideas expressed by parallelism. So there has to be a parallel idea or strongly contrasted words. And together with there is antithesis, there is synthesis. This is the most difficult part of critical thinking, as you can understand it, as the research is required to resolve the contrasting ideas in a rational manner and reach a new conclusion. So basically, this is a reaching a new conclusion. If you have to reach somewhere at a point in your writing to a conclusive part, to the conclusion, so synthesis is that part. In synthesis, you have to reach to the conclusion, and through a process, there has to be synthesis through the process of thesis and antithesis. Now, how it happens, let us move on to the next slide to understand through the example. In this slide, the following extract may be considered for an example. It is taken as the introduction to Measure for Measure or narration second series. This is the passage. So I'm just reading it out. E.K. Chambers regarded this group of plays, All's Well That Ends Well, Troilus and Cressida, Hamlet and Measure for Measure, as utterances of a puzzled and disturbed spirit, full of questioning, skeptical of its own ideas. Dover Wilson took them as evincing Shakespeare's self-laceration, weariness, discord, cynicism, and disgust. As against the autobiographical approach to Shakespeare's art, historical criticism traced the problem to the spiritual exhaustion of the Jacobean age. These conflicting assessments may be taken to reflect changes in literary taste and intellectual orientation. Now, you have to follow very carefully again that these parts are marked in different colors, yellow, green, and blue. So why they are marked in different colors, you have to understand, because there lies the concept of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. How? In the above text, in the first movement of thought, E.K. Chambers regarded this group of plays, means All's Well That Ends Well to Measure for Measure, as the utterances of a puzzled and disturbed spirit full of questioning, skeptical of its own ideas. Dover Wilson took them as events in Shakespeare's self-restoration, weariness, discord, cynicism, and disgust. So there is a statement, and the statement is created by someone. That statement is taken by someone, and it is given in this. So this is called the thesis part. Now, what is then antithesis? The counter movement of thought as against the autobiographical approach of Shakespeare's art, historical criticism traced the problem to the spiritual exhaustion of the Jacobean is antithesis, because there is, you find a contrast, an idea which is not repeated, which is placed against some another idea or one another as against one another. So therefore, it is called an antithesis. So for thesis, and then there is antithesis. Now finally comes the part of synthesis. Finally, these conflicting assessments may be taken to reflect changes in literary taste and intellectual orientation is the synthesis. This is the result, this is the conclusion of this. So in this passage, what you have, There is the first part is called thesis because there is a statement. In the second part, it is antithesis because there is a contrasting idea. And finally, there is synthesis because this is the conclusion of the first two thesis and antithesis. In that way, you have to understand inner critical thinking or critical thought of writing, thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. Moving to the last one, the questions as it is always. What is meant by currency of the source material? So it may be asked of 5 marks. Now you have to follow this part very carefully because in this part I am giving you questions as regularly as I have already given in the earlier parts too. So why not in this part? Try to figure out the answers of these questions. If any problem persists, you can contact me. Now, the second one is the what is meant by accuracy in the source material. What is peer review and how does it work? Write a brief note on the idea of synthesis and how it is reached. Why is own writing necessary in academic writing? How is an electronic source evaluated? Explain. How printed source evaluated? Illustrated example. What do we understand by analysis? So on the right hand side, you have the marks division, and on the left hand side, you have the questions. There may be more questions you can create by yourself. You can create by your critical thinking, actually. So yes, these questions are available questions. These questions are also given in this book. Book means the source that I always try to say you this is the source of my whole video. You can read through this, you can go through this, you can read this, or you can follow the video, whatever you can do, or you can do both. You can read the book, you can follow my video, if it helps at all. Now, finally, you have to understand that I heartily thank you all for watching this video till to the end. And I believe that within few days, I will try to create another video on the part 5, I believe. And after part 5, there will be one more, the part 6. And after that, this segment will be closed. So thank you again for watching the video. Till the next video comes, stay healthy, stay blessed.